George, what is the best way to lose a foot? To diabetes or to a date?
Joe, you can call me a romantic, but there is no best way to lose a foot. I'm very much a man who likes both of my feet attached to my body.
You know what an alternative title to this movie could have been?
What?
Footloose!
You're going to spend this entire cold open obsessed with a guy getting his foot cut off, aren't you?
I'm just trying to put my best foot forward.
I'm glad you could laugh at this. I found it disturbing.
I found it disturbing and funny. I guess I got a foot in both camps.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put my foot in my mouth.
Can we start now?
Yeah, I guess that's it. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast looks at old movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romacka. And today we're discussing Audition from 1999 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones who are really, really lonely from a culture that is apparently 100% chock full of lonely people, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod.
Isn't a song called All the Lonely People?
I'm sure there is.
All the lonely people, where do they come from? All the lonely people.
I think it's a Beatles song, too.
That's probably is the Beatles song, but I can't remember the name of it. Also, it is called All the Lonely People, but I don't think so. I think it's just a lyric.
Yeah. Well, listeners can write in.
Yes, let us know, because we ain't going to look it up right now.
Yeah. Joe, take us back to 1999.
And that's the way it was.
George, 1999 was not a good year for Japan when it came to their economy. Read this headline from the Miami Herald.
Japan's recession looms large over White House summit.
The article speaks of President Clinton's meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Keizo Obuchi. The meeting went well, but Obuchi was having a tough time back home. Quoting from the article, that painful reality is that Japan's economy remains stuck in its worst crisis since World War II with no end in sight. Despite Obuchi's massive efforts to resolve the crisis, which Clinton will applaud, Japan's troubles still threaten to sink all of Asia and probably the world back into the economic turmoil that rocked the globe last autumn. Japan is the world's second biggest economy. It alone accounts for 2/3 of all East Asian economic activity. So long as Japan is struggling, so will Asia. And the ripple effects will swamp the world, as last year's global turmoil demonstrated. End quote. Well, as many of you might know, Japan did not get better, but it didn't take anyone else down with them. The nation fell from second largest to what is now the 4th largest economy in the world, behind the US, China, and Germany. In addition to the free-falling economy in 1999, Japan was gripped by a fear of a highly toxic compound called dioxin. George, please read this headline, also from the Miami Herald.
Japan gripped by fear of widespread dioxin pollution. Incinerators seen as source of cancer agent.
I will quote, pollution from dioxin, a chemical compound linked to cancer, birth defects, and other health problems, has become Japan's latest environmental obsession. Along with polluting the air, dioxins can seep into the soil and water, contaminating farm, dairy, and fish products. Though researchers are now just beginning to grasp the scope of the problem, some scientists believe dioxin pollution in Japan may be the worst in the world. Dioxin pollution is closely linked to the burning of trash. The compound is often released when plastics and other wastes that contain chlorine-based chemicals are burned. End quote. Japan is a nation of incinerators, if you didn't know, because they lack space for landfills.
Right. We have a New Jersey.
Yes, we have New Jersey.
And that just lets us have plenty of room for landfill.
100%. So even today, they dispose of their garbage by burning it, and they continue to work to not poison the entire society that way. But it ain't easy. Burning trash is how they think Joe Biden's son, got brain cancer while he was serving in Iraq. He inhaled the smoke from burn pits. And if you are familiar with the movie Jarhead, a film we watched for the pod, the main character gets burned in garbage duty, and it is not portrayed as a fun time. So, George, how do the guys dispose of waste on a naval ship? Do you know?
Well, it depends on the kind of waste. Human excrement was basically overboarded. Glass and metals were crushed and shredded, then put in burlap sacks and thrown overboard, because those could actually become bases for reef development to grow on.
Okay.
And plastics were compressed and heated into pucks that we stored on board until we got back to the States. Anything else, so food waste and paper and things like that, we burned.
When you say pucks, do you mean literal pucks like they would use at hockey?
Big, round, about the size of about like the diameter of a trash can.
Okay.
And maybe like 3 inches thick.
Interesting. Okay, well, as bad as the concern about dioxin levels were, the nuclear accident they had that year was of even greater concern. George, read this headline from the New York Daily News.
Nuke nightmare ended. Japan caps deadly runaway reaction.
Quoting now, atomic experts responding to Japan's worst nuclear accident stopped a runaway chain reaction early today that exposed 40 people to deadly radiation and endangered thousands more. It took them nearly a day to stem the crisis at the Takamura plant. They were complicated by the intense heat and radiation levels that at one point were 15 times higher than normal. End quote. Okay, before anyone starts yelling at me, that was 1999, remember? Japan would actually have its worst nuclear accident 12 years later in 2011 with the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant meltdown, which is triggered by a massive earthquake and subsequent tsunami. So, George, what do you know about either one of those nuclear meltdowns?
Okay, so the Tokamura nuclear accident was a criticality accident. That was a fuel processing plant. They converted uranium hexafluoride into uranium dioxide fuel pellets, highly enriched uranium. That's what you use in reactors. What happened was they lacked a safety culture and did not have good oversight. And one of their, let's just say, vats of enriched fuel decided, oh, we're all this fuel in one place. That makes us a nuclear reactor. So let's do nuclear reactor things, and went critical. That meant that a self-sustaining nuclear reaction began taking place, so their fuel started fissioning itself. That creates lots of heat, because that's what we do that for.
Okay. Now, do you know anything about the one that happened 12 years later?
Yeah.
The Fukushima.
Fukushima was the definition of you can't plan for everything. Fukushima was designed to withstand an earthquake and a tsunami. Just not that magnitude of earthquake with that bad of a tsunami.
So it was unavoidable. There's nothing they could have done to make that not happen.
No, they tried. They engineered it to withstand those kinds of things. Just Earth was like, hold my beer.
You know, stuff like this is why people are against nuclear power.
Yeah, because they don't get it. They don't get that as bad as Fukushima was, like you'll see headlines that say, oh my goodness, radiation levels off the coast of California, 10,000 times normal due to Fukushima radiation. 10,000 times nothing is nothing. Like the radiation levels were negligible to begin with. They're still negligible if you multiply them by 10,000 times. But if you put a 10,000 times thing on there, people will read your newspaper. Bang for buck, carbon atom for carbon atom, nuclear power could be what turns our tide against climate change if we would stop NIMBYing it out of existence.
Not in my backyarding, you're saying. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. Now, nuclear power can keep the lights on indefinitely, right? Am I correct in that?
No.
No? Okay.
You are still using fuel, but it's not
all right.
Fossil fuel. So you would, like, eventually your fuel cells, or, you know, your uranium, if you fission all of your uranium, you don't have fuel anymore. So you'd have to replace it. But that's why you build, like, a complex with multiple reactors so that you could be refueling one, because that's like a months-long engineering process. You have to take it apart and then put new fuel in it and then put it back together. But you could maintain power going, yes, because, like, you could run a reactor for 20 years.
But even with all of its downsides that people feel about nuclear power, it's still safer than what we put into the environment now with oil, right?
Oh, fuck yes. Hell yes. Yes, absolutely 100% yes.
So people, I mean, I guess their environmentalists would want us to have neither one, but then we need, again, to keep the lights on.
Well, until we have a grid powered predominantly by renewable or nuclear power, right? It would be a carbon expenditure to build a nuclear power plant because all of the things that you need to build that would be powered by fossil fuels. Once you build all that out, your fossil fuel usage drops precipitously to almost nothing. Like we wouldn't need it anymore. Which that would put, oil barons out of fucking business. So we don't.
And ironically, they have environmentalists helping them because they'd rather have the oil than have a nuclear reactor.
Yep.
Because then they think, oh, don't put that. You said NIMBY, don't put it in my backyard. It's going to pollute everything and kill all our children, all the radiation. By the way, how much radiation is a human being exposed to just on the average, just naturally?
That's a good question.
Because I'm fairly certain, just in our everyday lives, we get exposed to radiation regardless of whether we're near a nuclear plant or near any sort of electronic thing, whatever causes radiation. There's natural radiation in the environment, is there not?
I mean, the sun is a giant nuclear furnace.
Of course, right.
It is sending gamma rays to us the average person in the United States gets about 6.2 millisieverts of radiation exposure per year. It takes about 1 sievert for you to start feeling like an immediate radiation effect. So this is like 6,000ths of what you would need to feel sick from it every year.
Okay, interesting. All right, let's move on now. Back to Japan. My apologies to you, Japan. Those were all negative stories. So, as a palate cleanser, let's do some random facts about Japan. I got all these from the website Rough Guide.
Okay.
So, George, did you know the oldest company in the world is in Japan? Kango Gumi is the oldest operating business in the world, established in 578. Not 1578, 578. It specializes in the construction of temples and shrines.
Well, go figure. The oldest business in the world would be the one that makes its money off of the grift of religion.
Well, there you go. Now, moving on. Nearly half the zippers worldwide are made in Japan. If you check your zipper, chances are it will say YKK on it, which stands for Yoshida Kyango Kamabusha. Founded in Tokyo in 1934, it is estimated that 7 billion zippers are produced by this manufacturer each year. Are you looking at your zipper now?
Yep, and it says YKK on it.
Hey, look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, check your zippers. See if it says YKK, because that is a top model zipper.
Yep.
Moving on, the first geisha in Japan were men. Did you know that, George?
I did not know that.
Male geishas were jesters of sorts. It wasn't until 25 years after their glory days that women, then known as geiko, arts child, outnumbered the working takemochi. Geiko then transformed into geisha, person of the arts as we know it today. Another fact, in Japan, there is one vending machine for every 24 people. With 5 million vending machines, Japan has the highest density in the world. Batteries, ramen, sake, umbrellas, flowers, you name it, and the vending machines probably stock it.
That is fucking kind of awesome.
It is wild. You know, they also have vending machines for panties, I found out recently.
Hey.
No reason, I just having to find that out. All right, Japan imports over 80% of Jamaica's annual coffee production. The coffee known as Blue Mountain, grown in Jamaica's namesake region, is highly sought after. Only grown on small family-run plantations at elevations of over 7,000 feet, this gourmet brew boosts mild flavors and lacks the bitterness found in most coffees. So they love Jamaican coffee. And finally, Japan has the 11th largest population in the world. An estimated 126 million people live in Japan since 2011. Japan's population has been noticeably declining, mostly due to low birth rates. Some say it's due to expensive childcare and the difficulty of finding well-paying jobs. And I will add this, my own opinion, immigration. Your country doesn't have enough people. Immigrant. Try that. But Japan, like a lot of nations, are fucking racist and short-sighted, so they don't want foreigners or whatever in the country, so they get worse results. So fuck you, Japan. Sorry, no, I didn't say I want to go negative.
Wow.
But honestly, I know, it just annoys me. All these countries, oh, we have such a problem. We don't have enough people to pay our Social Security. We don't have enough people to pay this. We're going broke here. Oh, we don't have enough people. You can have plenty of people. You just too racist to know it.
Okay, then.
It's not just true in Japan. God knows. Look what we have in this country.
Yep.
Anyway, George, tell us about Audition.
All right. This was directed by Takeshi Miike, written by Ryu Murakami and Daisuke Tengen.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's just say up front, we may be fucking these names up and we apologize.
Yep. Also, we haven't seen almost any of these people in almost anything.
No, we have not. There's actually one person on this list I've actually seen a lot of their work.
Yep. Blurbs. IMDb says, a widower takes an offer to screen girls at a special audition arranged for him by a friend to find him a new wife. The one he fancies is not who she appears to be after all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Internet Archive, because my blurb section has to have blurbs, it's plural, so I have to have two. But
Of course.
the Internet Archive is the only other place I could find, it was the second place I checked. But anyway, this is where the blurb is from. In Japanese with English subtitles!
It's all caps with exclamation points.
Yep. Shigeharu Aoyama is a producer of movies and television. Even though he has a son, he is quite lonely, for he has been a widower for the last 7 years. His friend and business partner, Yasuisha Yoshikawa, has Aoyama set up an audition for a romantic movie. All of this to find him a bride. Aoyama has his eyes focused on one such beauty, Asami Yamazaki. But soon, Aoyama realizes that he is getting more than what he could ask for.
Now, as bad as this results for this poor guy in this film, if you consider him a poor guy, do you think I should try something like this? I'm pretty lonely. I don't even have a son and I'm lonely.
I thought that's what was going to be the cold open. This film opens with sadness, only a bit less powerful than Pixar's Up. 10-year-old Shigehiko Aoyama is carrying a massive get-well card for his mom down the evening-darkened halls of a hospital, cheerfully greeting nurses as he walks by. Shigehiko Aoyama, for the rest of the film, will be played by Tetsu Sawaki. In a room in that hospital, his father, Shigeharu Aoyama, sits beside the bedside of his dying wife as the beeps of the equipment signal her life slipping away. And Shigeharu Aoyama is played by Ryu Ishibashi.
You've never seen this picture before, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Sure had
so,
no.
When you first saw this, just from this scene here where the wife is dying and the kid comes in, what do you think this film is going to be about?
I mean, I read the blurbs.
Oh, that's true. Right. But I mean, you get the impression, at least when I saw it in the theaters when it first came out, that it was like almost like a romantic comedy. I said, well, maybe comedy is the wrong word, but it's almost like we know it's going to end with his wife just dying. Obviously, he's going to meet another person. So, it's going to be, it's like, with the kid and, I don't know. You thought, at least for me, I thought it was going to go different places. And it definitely did not go.
Okay, I tried not to have expectations of this, and I was rewarded for that by something. When his son enters the room, Shigeharu collapses at the side of the bed. And in the early morning hours, they walk home together, and we get the film's title card.
Audition.
Then 7 years later, they are out fishing together. They have a good, close relationship, but Shihiko would rather have a girlfriend than a fish.
Me too.
Yeah. Shigeharu answers a work call on his cell, then hooks a big one. Once it's reeled in, they head home.
They do indeed.
At dinner, Shigehiko explains that the fish that they caught, the Black Sea bream, all start as males, with some turning female during adolescence.
What?
Yep.
You mean that's natural?
Yeah. This leads the son to tell his father that he doesn't look young anymore and that he should find a woman to marry.
How's that correlated?
Yeah, right? Shigehiko clears the table, pets their beagle puppy Gang, and heads to bed, informing his dad that it's his turn to do dishes.
Mm-hmm. That seems like a nice, comfortable relationship.
Yeah. In the morning, Shigeharu is reviewing footage of a rock band concert, commiserating with the editor, and with all of Japan, apparently, on their shared loneliness.
You know what they're sharing? They're sharing a drink called loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone.
La 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 diddy da da. At the end of the day, his secretary tells him that she'll be getting married soon to someone he doesn't know. He congratulates her.
Now,
is it just me, or was she putting the moves on him, trying to get him to make a move?
That's what I thought.
Okay.
That's what I got the impression. That she wanted him to go, oh, who's going? You're getting married? What?
Right.
Don't marry him, marry me, or something. But yes, I think she clearly wanted something from him that he was not giving her.
And I think the point of that is sometimes you don't see what's right the fuck in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
He heads to a bar to meet with his friend and...
Are you hitting on me, George?
Maybe. I mean, I've told you I'd cut all the shit out of you. He heads to a bar to meet with his friend and colleague, Yasuhisa Yoshikawa. Yasuhisa. Which I get, like, that name almost sounds to me like a Japanese Jesus.
Really? Okay.
Like Yeshua, but
you mean Yahweh?
Yasuhisa?
Is that what it makes you think of?
Well, no, because Yeshua is one pronunciation of Jesus' name in Hebrew, and so there's like Yasuhisa or Yasuhisa, which I thought was like Yeshua, sort of. But anyway,
Yoshia Yokokawa is played by Jun Kawamura, and we both seen him in Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. And I heard his voice in The Boy and the Heron, and I seen him in Hard Boiled. A good movie we should put on the list sometime.
And that, you know, a couple of people lately have asked me how we pick movies for the show. And I go through, I'm like, you know, we used to look at like hit movies from years past, and then we looked at the National Film Registry, but nowadays it's just we read the cast list and we're like, oh, they were in that. We should put that on the list. And then we put it on the list. And now we have a list that goes out to 2026.
Well, to be fair, that's how you do it. For myself, some of these are films I've actually seen before, and I go, oh, yeah, that's right. When I'm looking through them, I go, oh, I haven't thought about this film in years.
Oh, yeah, the other thing is I want to make my best friend watch this movie. That's the other way that movies get on the list.
So like Hard Boiled. I seen Hard Boiled, so I put that on the list. Mm-hmm. We both seen Kill Bill, although I don't know if is that 10 years old or not?
Oh, fuck yeah.
If it is, then we can put them both on the list. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, Kill Bill Volume 1 was 2003.
Okay, then yes.
They, too, commiserate on their shared loneliness.
But it's still better than drinking alone.
La-da-da-da-da-da. But, like, they make that point twice that, like, oh, there are no girls in Japan. Everybody's lonely. Like, Yep, and apparently now your birth rate's dropping.
There does seem to be a problem in Japan with people hooking up, and I guess it's a cultural thing. I have no idea, and also the men seem slightly, maybe a little infantile, perhaps. I don't know. But then again, we have the same thing in this country. Who are we kidding?
Exactly. Yasuhisa goes so far as to say that Japan is finished. I mean, I don't know. They're still around.
Yeah, very much so.
Yasuhisa is surprised that Shigeru wants to remarry and asks what he's looking for. Shigeru wants somebody not too young with some kind of artistic or professional training because that begets confidence and confidence begets happiness. Yasuhisa chuckles. He's got an idea.
Mm-hmm. Audition.
Title?
That is the title.
At work the next day, Yasuhisa explains that he's got a script that needs some work but can be used to create an audition for a leading role part. These auditions will basically be like speed dating. The women suitable for marriage would fail the second interview because they're great, with all the qualities Shigeru is looking for, but they'll be too happy. And happy people, apparently, don't make good actors.
You know, I hear that, I heard that theory about comedians when I was in comedy.
I've heard that about artists of any stripe in general, that you have to suffer to make art.
This, of course, is ridiculous and completely nonsense.
Yep. And is used to normalize a lot of really horrible shit.
100%, yes. You know the real trick to being a good artist?
Practice.
Practice helps, yeah, but play. Being able to play.
Oh, yeah.
Just, be playful.
Be playful. Be creative and imaginative and let yourself let it go. Let yourself roll with it. Yeah.
Exactly. Play being another word for creative. Yeah, just let it go. Don't
let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Oh, well, we're going to be a singing episode. The thing that people need to realize is it's not suffering. The reason people suffer as artists is because you don't make a lot of money starting out as an artist. Most people don't succeed, but that's where the suffering comes from because economically it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
You don't have to be miserable to be an artist. Emotionally, you really don't.
Nope.
In terms of this audition thing, using auditions to meet girls, apparently this is something that has been done in real life.
I believe it 100%.
In fact, I won't say his name because I don't quite remember, and I'm not sure it was him, but there was a performer who put up a acting school and he got sued for it because apparently he was using that acting school to meet women and get his friends laid.
Doesn't surprise me. Because 10-year-old me tried to put a movie together so that I could get a girl I liked involved in it. It didn't pan out in any sense of the word. Sitting in a traffic jam with the rain pouring down, Shigeharu hears a radio ad for their casting audition. And in a room somewhere, a young girl sits alone and hears that radio ad. We will see that room later, and that girl isn't as young as she is in this shot, but we'll get there. And patrons get access to our scripts, and I'm going to start putting screenshots of shit in the scripts just to, I don't know, make that worth more.
When he says of shit, he doesn't mean literally.
Not literally, but I've got a picture up because I didn't notice it until the second time I was watching the movie that, oh no, that's the child version of this character. But
yes, it is.
They're not a child when they're hearing this ad.
No. Although I think the idea is that emotionally, that's where she is.
I don't think she's emotionally there, Joe. I don't think she's emotionally on a spectrum of age. I think she's emotionally monstrous.
Well, I think the trauma happened to her as a child.
Yes.
So when she hears this, she reverts back to her childhood.
Sure. Shigeharu comes home as his housekeeper is leaving. She also almost sort of makes a pass at him later. He spends the evening looking through hundreds of resumes. At one point, he looks at a photo of his late wife on his desk and turns it to not be facing him. Yasuisha calls to ask how it's going, and Shigeharu likens it to shopping for a car, which is kind of how dating apps make it seem nowadays anyway.
Indeed.
Yasuisha tells him to pick 30 from the pile. A dapper-looking Shigeko comes in to say that he has a guest over, and Shigeharu tells him, give the lady his portion of dinner. When Shigeko leaves, Shigeharu notices he's spilled some tea on a resume and picks it up. He is instantly smitten with the subject, Asami Yamazaki, who suffered an injury at 18 that ended her 12 years of ballet practice, the acceptance of which she likens to an acceptance of death. Asami Yamazaki is played by Eihi Shin. Later, Shigeharu goes to take Gang for a walk, Gang being the name of their puppy. Again, and meets his son's friend that he met on the train and asked over to study biology together. All of which could be read a very different way now that I say it out loud. He tells his son to make sure she gets home safe. Then it's time for auditions. It's a montage of Shigeharu and Yasuisha asking lots of women lots of questions, convincing at least one to take her top off, all while Shigeharu counts down to when he can finally meet Asami. I've got a picture of her in here because, and I don't mean to insult her, she's a lovely lady, but there's like some kind of uncanny valley thing going on here.
She does a very good job of playing someone who has something wrong with her.
Yes. She's a good actress. When it's finally her turn, she describes having no acting experience, but being on retainer at Ace Records under their Japanese music department director Shibata. She says she helps part-time at a bar in Ginza, the owner having been a classmate in her voice training. She keeps her costs low and gets by with enough to get some books and CDs. Shigeharu asks about her ballet injury so that he can gush about how mature she is based on her resume writing.
By the way, her two former bosses, I assume you get into about them.
Yeah, well, yeah, wait, dude, I don't know. Why would I get into all that shit right now? There's a whole lot to happen.
I understand. I just want to make sure you, because you didn't.
I read I watched the movie and I told you it's a normal length summary.
Okay.
You can safely assume I'll cover the important plot points.
You normally say put a pin in that. That's all. And you don't say it there.
Yeah. Well, somebody's going to put pins in somebody. Yeah, you'll hear about that later. So she leaves. When she leaves, Yasuisha says she gave him the creeps and that Shigeharu's gushing was unprofessional in their contrived audition speed dating scheme. His behavior was unprofessional.
Well, to be fair, there is, if the if the script comes together, I think there will be a movie. It just won't be these women in it.
Yeah. Shigeharu stands by his opinion, and by his opinion, I mean his affection.
Mm-hmm.
That night, his son...
Yeah, he just his friend is right on to her. He knows exactly what's going on.
That night, his son asks that he find a wife who cooks better than their housekeeper, then rushes off to do some research about a newfound dinosaur fossil. Shigeharu steals his nerves and calls Asami, setting up a meeting. Or, a date. Director Shibata at Ace Records has been missing for a year.
Mm-hmm. Put a pin in that, because that's not the only person she's worked with has disappeared.
Nope. When he meets Asami, he admits that he just wanted to meet her. He asks about her backstory, and she admits that it was all a lie, that she was advised to answer like that, and she has never met director Shibata. After their date, Asami asks to spend more time with him. He gives her his cell number and agrees. Yasuisha and Shigeharu meet on a rooftop sports thingy. I don't even know what to fucking call that.
Just a rooftop restaurant.
It wasn't a restaurant. It was a netted thing, and they were throwing what looked like oversized golf balls into a basket. I have no idea what sport that is.
You're right. Sorry, I was thinking of somewhere, because there's a lot of them.
There are a lot of restaurants in this movie.
Yes, but this was not a restaurant. You're right. Some sort of sporty thing. Although he's wearing a tie, right? And a shirt.
Yeah, they're just wearing their business clothes.
This is not dressed for a sporting event, so I don't know. I can't help you. I have no idea what that was about.
Yasuisha cautions his friend about rushing into this. Shigeharu is certain that he can't be fooled and that she's the one. Still, Yasuisha extracts a promise that Shigeharu not call her. Because if he doesn't, this movie would be like 45 minutes shorter.
And not make a lot of sense.
Yeah. We see Asami in her apartment, sitting by the phone, motionless, with a sack of something nearby. Shigeharu takes the next day off of work, his housekeeper commenting that he must have a girlfriend because, and I'm quoting, men can't maintain without female support. By the way, this...
I'll go with that.
Yeah, sure, if you say so. But she also says, she wishes her husband was she was kind of flirting with him too. And then
somewhat.
Just kind of walks away when he's obviously not paying any attention. Also, apparently Shigeharu owns that film company.
Or something. I'm never quite clear what his exact status is.
He's the owner. She says he's worked hard for his son. He started his own company and everything.
Yes, no, I remember that, but his friend never actually says he's the owner, which you think would come up. Because he doesn't work for him.
Yeah, he does.
He doesn't seem like that's his boss, do you? They don't seem to have that relationship.
They're closer than that, I guess.
I guess. I don't know. For me, it was a little confusing what exactly
I mean, his best friend is setting up Audition speed dating for him. His secretary's flirting with him. Who the fuck knows where the boundaries are in business relationships in Japan, Joe? He goes back to work the next day and then goes the whole day without calling her. Right up until he calls her.
Just couldn't stand it.
Just couldn't stand it. And then the phone rings at Asami's. She creepy smiles. And then the sack on the ground rolls back and forth. And I've got a gif of this in the script.
Did you... Well, I guess we'll discuss at the end. But for me, that made me jump. When I initially saw it, and I knew it was going to happen when I saw it again. But that sack is creepy.
I did...
Did it make you jump or you just...
No, it didn't. Because also, one benefit of watching a movie that it is only subtitled in the language that you speak, so it was in Japanese with English subtitles, is I can guilt-free watch it at 2 times speed. Because I'm not going to miss any dialogue. It's not going to sound weird. It's just, it already sounds weird. I don't speak Japanese. So I only had to watch this for, the length of it 1 time, because I watched it twice at double speed. They have another date, and she says that she was worried he wouldn't call. She describes her family as normal and says the bar that she works at is the Stony Fish. She asks him not to come by because the owner interferes with her life. He says the movie she auditioned for probably won't get made. She says she's glad she met him.
All going well, don't you think?
Sure. They keep dating. She says she's lonely and he's the first guy to not only approach but to support her and wrap her warmly or some shit like that. Back at home, Shigeku guesses that his dad has a girlfriend because he's a lot happier now. Shigeharu says he's proposing when they go away together this weekend. His son wishes him luck and, like Yasuisha, warns him that he's blinded by love, but like playfully.
Full disclosure, if there's any sort of, for me, false note's not really the right word for it. And there's a lot of weirdness, so I can't even say it's a weird scene. But the thing that I found still odd is that this guy is going to propose to this woman and not introduce her to his son first. Which maybe is common in Japan, I don't know. But personally, if I had a kid and I was dating someone, I want my child to meet that person before I decide I'm going to marry them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I can't. I just have to agree with you there.
It's just, it's so strange that there's like, I'm going to just propose to her. Okay, Dad, that's great. Now, Dad, am I going to meet this woman? What do you mean you're going to marry her? Is this one's going to be my stepmom and I don't even know, I know nothing about her? Mm-hmm. She's never been in the same room as me?
So that's a good point. But also, Yasuisha and Shigeku are both pointing out that this guy is in new relationship energy. New relationship energy is this opioid addicted like state that paints red flags green or makes you blind to them because it's evolution's way of encouraging you to get with somebody. It's a very real state that people get into.
Sure.
That's how people end up entwined in relationships that are very bad for them because that new relationship energy carries them through that initial stuff until they're all together. And then once it fades, it's like, oh shit, now I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Shigeharu takes Asami to a seaside resort and as night falls lists things that they can do before dinner, none of them involving sex. So Asami wordlessly takes her clothes off and gets in bed. She asks him to come to her. She pulls up the sheet to expose her legs, which have 2 straight burn scars on her upper left thigh. She says she burnt herself when she was little and wants him to know everything about her. She throws the sheet off and asks him to love her, and only her. He promises to do so, strips, and gets into bed. And in the morning, he's alone. He's woken up to the front desk, calling to inform him that Asami has left.
So he feels like a cheap tramp.
Yeah.
Used him for sex and then ran off.
He takes this to Yasuisha, who pleads with him to forget about her. Shigeharu is all, fine, I'll find her myself. But like in Japanese.
Well, not like in Japanese, literally in Japanese.
He paces around reading her resume until he sees the name of that ballet studio. So he goes and finds the place boarded up. He breaks in and finds an old man playing a badly tuned piano on a wheelchair with crude artificial feet. We see that the man is the one who burned Asami's legs when he was her ballet teacher. He tells Shigeharu to go home.
Do you think she's the one who did that to him?
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine that's what that came from, yeah. Well, for good reason. I mean, in the movie, we see that he's burning her legs, so...
Yeah, I think he did more than burn her legs, too.
Yeah,
I think everybody in her life did more than that. Then he checks out the stony fish. A neighbor tells him that the bar's been closed for a year. The owner was found dismembered. When her body was put back together, there was an extra ear, an extra tongue, and 3 extra fingers.
Is that when he sees the tongue himself? Yep. Or does that come later?
No, it's when he sees it. Like, he has flashbacks, but he was never there to begin with, so how could he be having... He just I guess he's imagining these are the pieces of the puzzle.
He has nightmare... What are the... Not illusions.
Hallucinations?
Hallucinations, thank you. He has hallucinations at points, yeah.
Yeah. While he's out looking for her, Asami gets into his house. She finds the picture of his wife and then his bottle of scotch. Time passes, and at night we see Shigeharu come home, listening to a voicemail from his son saying that he's staying with a friend, telling him to feed gang because he's apparently hiding under the house. When Shigeharu has some scotch, he starts to feel funny. He gets up and falls to the floor, paralyzed. He flashes back to his dates with Asami, where she describes being abused by her family. He hallucinates his wife trying to warn him away from her. Then he hallucinates himself into her apartment, with her going down on him. Then she becomes his secretary, and then that friend that his son brought home. Then he sees the writhing sack on the ground. Asami vomits into a bowl. A man missing 3 fingers, an ear, and a tongue comes out of that sack and laps the vomit up out of the bowl.
Good stuff.
Great movie I had to watch, Joe, sitting in a Starbucks.
No one told you to watch it at a Starbucks.
Then he sees that old guy burn her legs and sees Asami decapitate him with a wire saw. When he wakes up, Asami is in his apartment, and we see that she has killed and mutilated the puppy. She puts on...
I shouldn't laugh at that. That is terrible, obviously.
She puts on lab PPE and injects his tongue with more paralyzing agent. She uses acupuncture needles to torture him. There's those pins. And I won't describe where because it's not really necessary and it might be uncomfortable to hear.
It's way more uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah. As she does this, she basically tells him that he's an unoriginal creep and that if you wait long enough, some lonely asshole will stage an audition to try and get laid.
Yep.
That's like the moral of the movie. Don't do that.
I guess.
Then she says, deeper, deeper, as she tortures him. And it sounds like this.
When I saw that, and not only myself, but all of us in the theater hearing it go, she's doing the most horrific things to him. It's like, people are screaming. Because it really is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
For her to be sounding like that, it's almost like a child, and yet what she's doing to him is not childlike.
I gotta figure out who that's gonna be my new ringtone for. She reminds him that he promised to love only her, and that meant nobody else and no other kind of love, apparently. She threatens his son, then cuts off his left foot with that wire saw.
That is a rough saying. Throws the foot over to the side against a window.
Yep, and thus we have a cold open. Shigeko comes home early, and Asami hears him, so she hides. He finds his father on the floor, and Asami comes after him, chasing him upstairs. He lands a lucky kick, sending her flying down the stairs, breaking her neck. So Shigeko calls for an ambulance. Shigeharu stares at Asami's body as she mutters back things that she told him earlier.
Presumably he's hallucinating that she's dead.
Sure. The end.
The end. Now, my friend, I get the impression you weren't as impressed by this film as I was. But I am curious, were you horrified at any parts of it?
I was, the premise bothered me, because these are two people doing what they were doing, like him and his friend, oh, fuck you guys. Like, you did fucking assholes. And then all this shit happens, okay, maybe it's not that level of bad, okay, you don't deserve that, but I don't.
Well, that's another question. So when this film came out, and I guess the debate's probably still on, and if you've seen this film, you may have debated this yourself, whether or not this is a feminist allegory or not. Is she a feminist avenging angel, or is this basically another Basic Instinct where the woman is insane and a monster, or could it be both?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. And I don't really feel like trying to tease apart how much of either.
Well, I was very impressed by this film. I when I first saw it, I mean, the horror isn't as bad the second time because I knew what was going to happen. Right. But still, it's still there. Yeah. It's a rough watch. I thought it was excellent. I guess I'm saying up front, I thought it still works. What do you think?
The thing is, horror and movies like this isn't my wheelhouse. This isn't where I don't like movies like this. I don't watch movies like this. So I don't actually know if this works or not. So I'm just going to say it fucking works because it made me uncomfortable. And I guess that's what it was fucking supposed to do.
It certainly wanted to do that. Yeah. What I liked about the film is, and you were right to be saying nothing's happening.
Which I did. I was at 35 minutes in the film and I texted Joe, is anything going to fucking happen in this movie?
And I said, oh, you'll see.
Which I was 35 minutes in watching it at double speed, so you can imagine how impatient I am.
What I liked about this film is that it starts out seemingly as one picture, as a man loses his wife and...
It starts out as Japanese up. Yeah.
Yes, and then it becomes a whole other movie, and it lulls you into a sense of, okay, just these dates, nothing's really happening. Yeah, the guy wants him about her, but she doesn't really seem to do anything, and then we get more and more revelations about her. At first she seems weird, but not, whatever. Then we see the sack. Then we see her sitting there, just off into space or something. Then we see the sack. Then we see other stuff about more and more is revealed about her. What I think works is the film. I appreciate that sort of filmmaking, that sort of horror, because it just draws you more in and in and in until you're like, oh my God, what the absolute fuck? This is horrible.
Yep. It did that.
As big of an asshole as you might think this guy is, at the end there, you do feel sorry for him. It was like, Jesus Christ, lady, what he did wasn't that bad. No need for all this. This is insane.
Nope.
And then, of course, the poor son arrives and he nearly gets hurt. So it's like... Wow. I don't know. I found it very
He did get hurt. Here's the thing. He just killed a woman. That traumatizes you. He's going to need therapy after. Like, that's psychological harm that child just earned by,
he sees his father's
surviving.
Foot cut off and pins sticking out of him.
Yeah.
He's going to need therapy regardless.
Yep.
I know. I thought it was terrific work, so I think it still works. And you're agreeing with me, so we'll go with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my friend, what's happening next? What's coming up?
Our next episode is a Patron's Choice episode. The patrons voted in the Family Relations poll for Addams Family Values from 1993.
Ah, what were the other choices?
The other choices were Ordinary People from 1980 and About Schmidt from 2002.
Okay. And they went Anna, so people want a comedy. Okay, cool.
Yep.
I remember finding that movie very funny. So we'll see if it's still funny today.
Same.
So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romacka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romacka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Then he gets a call from Yasuisha. He did some research.
Shibata.
Director Shibari is bondage, rope tying. I don't know why I was Freudianly inserting that there.
Which more fucked you up, this picture or Blue Velvet?
Dear Prudence, I have a little problem, one of which weighs 68 pounds to be exact. Dear Prudence, when behind the wheel of a car, I would never consider parking in a spot designated for a fellow driver with disabilities. Dear Prudence, I'm having an ongoing ordeal over whether my 12-year-old daughter should refer to her stepfather as dad, stepdad, or by his first name.